Hey guys, I just wanted to take a little bit of your time today to talk about XYZ monsters. So, XYZ monsters are, well, out of all of the extra deck, monsters, XYZ is probably just inherently the worst before you even look at, like, what monsters are in their category, I guess. So, before we even get to that point, XYZs are the most restrictive to summon somehow. So the issue with XYZs to an extent is that, well, to summon a XYZ monster, you have to meet certain requirements. And those requirements are just, well, for example, with Utopic Dark Infinity here, you need 2 level 10 monsters. And alright, that's fine. But then you have to take into consideration uh, out of all of the extra deck, well, basically every summoning mechanic, this is the only one that can't use mechanics for, or not mechanics, that can't use tokens for their special summons. So, if I had, I don't know, like a billion tokens, I can't XYZ summon with those. I can't do anything with those. The only option I have is to link summon. That's it. So for every single other type of summon, well, I guess extra deck wise, for Synchro, Link, Fusion, and even Ritual, you can make. Actually, I'm not sure if all rituals can make usage of it. Can you? Well, yeah, you can, because it doesn't say like tribute sent to the graveyard or anything weird like that on ritual summons. So yeah, you can special summon ritual monsters using tokens. XYZ is the only type that can't do it at all. Fusions have some niche cards that can do it, so in that aspect, fusions would be like the second worst, basically. Like pre-branded, what did we really have for fusions? I'll wait. Yeah, pretty much nothing as far as I'm concerned. So, synchros and links. The thing about them is that, well, with synchros and link monsters, you don't necessarily have to use 2 main deck monster cards. So, straight up, if I want to summon any of the cards here, well, it's not necessarily main deck except for like the first one, I guess. It's a little funky sometimes, but if I want to summon like Utopic Dark Infinity, I guess, I can also use Synchro monsters, some extra deck monsters, to go into Utopic Dark Infinity. But like, I would need to use 2 level 10s. So, this will take quite a few main deck monsters to make that way, I think. If we made like 2 Synchro 10s. But at that point, you could have just made like Baron Chengying, and then you would have been better off. But anyways, let's go to a lower ranking monster, I guess. So like, with the Zodiacs, you can just use any like one Zodiac monster to like XYZ summon into like the XYZ Zodiacs, I guess, the extra deck zoos. So the thing that's like really sad about this, like, well, the thing to really dislike about Zoo as an XYZ archetype is, am I really XYZ summoning here? Like, don't you need like 2 monsters to like, and then you make XYZ monster or something? Like, can you imagine how degenerate it would be if we just had like Exo Sisters, but it's also Zodiac, so you just like Martha, summon like 2, and then you just XYZ into 2 extra deck monsters just straight up off rip. Like, no questions asked. Now, not really a big fan of that one, personally. So then, like, with Sprite, they have to generate insane advantage. And there's some finicky stuff on some of these XYZs. Like, for example, especially in my opinion, the ones that detach for effect are particularly bad. But like Gigantic Sprite's fine simply because the archetype for Sprite is just good, simply put. Because you would be generating advantage before you even get to the point where you summon Gigantic Sprite typically. But like, this is pretty much the only XYZ kind of like this. Every other XYZ, like, archetype, like, let's say you special summon, Caspitel, and then you get Ash Blossomed. Alright, the turn's over, you ain't got anything else. That's kinda just how it goes, I guess. So, you just summon, well, it's even worse, I guess, for the, like, Time Thief Redoer, for example, has to detach for effect. So if something, like, literally anything chains onto, like, that kind of monster, aside from, like, Book of Moon, because you can have materials detached from face down XYZ monster, your effect just doesn't resolve. Like, if you were banished, sent to the graveyard, negated, like, destroyed, numerous things can happen, and then your effect doesn't resolve at all, and you lose, like, essentially, like, 3 monsters, is how it feels, I guess, because you have to commit pretty hard to make an XYZ monster. Like, well, there are some weird exceptions, like Marksman King Tell, I guess, where sending it to the graveyard is kind of like mid. Doesn't really matter. But usually for the ones that are combo pieces, like, having them negated is just devastating, because you have to use, like, for example, with Sword Soul, if I normal summon Moyi, that's just 1 card I've committed, right? But if I, for example, summon Gigantic Sprite just off rip, I guess, well, it wouldn't necessarily be. Actually, a better example would be, like, Utopia Double. Like, let's say I summon Utopia Double, and then we can attempt to activate the effect of Double. If this gets negated, I'm just left with Utopia Double to do, like, nothing with, basically. And that's just pain, I guess. No real good way to put it, I guess. So you summon, like, your card, and then it does nothing. This has 2,500 defense, I guess, at least. So that's great, but if I get interrupted on Utopia Double, I basically end my turn, and that is that. So the deal with going into Utopia Double in the first place is it'll also require me to, like, commit to monsters as well, and they will be from my hand, straight up. Like, not every, like, XYZ archetype has, like, a Martha where you can just special summon a monster and then special summon another one from out of basically nowhere, and then I guess you can go off after that, whatever. But, like, if I have to commit my normal summon and then, like, a special summon to make Utopia Double, and then I get negated here, well, not much you can do most cases, honestly. There's, like, exactly 1 extender, being, like, Astraltopia. ZS Utopic Sage is basically the same kind of way. So, not much to do here, I guess, except suffer. But, like, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes the monster just detaches for cost, sometimes they detach for effect. I don't really know why that is, but XYZ is basically the only extra deck, well, yeah, the only type of extra deck monster where this gimmick actually matters. Like, synchros don't have to deal with this, fusions don't have to deal with this, links don't have to deal with this. The only thing pseudo-similar that links have to do is, like, well, they can, there's some link monsters that, require a link monster, like, to be on the field because they need to do something involving, like, a link arrow or something, like special summon to a zone that a link monster points to or whatever. That's the closest thing we have to this, so that's just suffering. Like, I don't know. XYZs are just, they're just feeling pretty bad, and they could use some, like, decent generic support, in my opinion. Or at least, like, a good XYZ archetype. I wouldn't really count, Gigantic Sprite and Sprite to be an XYZ archetype. The only XYZ they use is Gigantic Sprite. Like, they can kinda XYZ summon, but you could just link summon, actually, and just only have Gigantic as, like, your only XYZ monster. Like, because why do you need to XYZ summon? And it's also feels bad, man, that of course they hit Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, who was like a great rank 3 to go into in a lot of different situations. I will miss my boy. Well, yeah. XYZs just are suffering, so in short, like, the majority of XYZ monsters, you require two like actual monsters to XYZ summon. Like, generally, or most of the time, you have to use main deck monsters. I don't really see, like, well, it's not as common, except when, like, VFD was around to, like, synchro summon a monster and then XYZ summon. It wasn't really that common to do that. Usually it's just 2 main deck monsters that you have to commit, and more often than not, they come from the hand generally. So if I summon, like, we'll go back to the example of ZSU Topic Sage, I am down 2 cards, like, when I summon that, so I only have 3 cards in hand, and that's just suffering, really. Just, I am down to 3 cards in hand, so if you're playing second, you actually would need a tool like Zeus to be able to play. Otherwise, like, I would die to, like, 1 negate, like, after like activating my first XYZ monster, even if it was just a negate, not a negate destroy. I ain't got nothing. But if it is a negate destroy, you're especially cooked. So, like, your engines are typically, like, too small to be able to run a lot of good generics, so that really sucks as well. The best kind of random tools that I know of, like, would be, like, for example, rank up Magic Numeron Force. This is, like, the closest thing to going second card that I know of that you would inherently play with, like, an XYZ kind of, like, focused deck. Like, even with Exo Sisters, for example. Let's look at their going second tools. Alright. Let's see. Exo Sister Carpa Divum here, or whatever. Neither player can target Exo Sister monsters you control with effects of monsters that were special summoned from the graveyard. This is useless, does nothing. Packs. Pay 800 life points, add 1 Exo Sister card from your deck to your hand, except for Exo Sister packs. Then if you added a monster by this effect, you can special summon it if the other Exo Sister monster mentioned on it is on your field or in your graveyard. So, add Martha, I guess. So if you're an Exo Sister player, I guess you have Martha. You can Martha try to do Martha effect, which will attempt to special summon a copy of Ellis from deck and Martha from hand. And this is honestly not gonna do much. So your goal will probably be to go Michaelis here, and then like this allows you to grab a spell trap from your deck, so you'd go for Pax, I guess. And then what you have here with, well, Marfa was like probably your only special summon that you're going to perform, really. So then you'll probably add, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe like, I don't know, I guess it depends. You're doing one of these Exo Sisters or whatever, and then you're trying to get 2 more Exo Sisters onto the field to make, I don't know, it depends what you're making here, I guess. And then you're going to go for Exo Sisters Magnifica afterwards. So that's kind of your goal, I guess. So let's assume your opponent has 2 monster negates though. Negate Martha. Negate Martha. Okay. And then negate the normal summon. Like, I guess in this case it'd probably be Stella. Negate Stella. And negate Destroy, of course. Cool. Now, I guess that's all you got. And then, I don't know, set Vatis Pass, maybe? If you're returning it as well, that's good for you, I guess. But the benefit is that your engine is more, like, compact, and it's, like, smaller, because you have, like, Martha, which is, like, Mathemax Circular, but X, Y, Z, I guess, is how I would phrase it, I guess. So, aside from that, you really don't have much. You're kind of just screwed going second. The only benefit you have, well, the only good thing we have going here is that you have Dimension Shifter, and you can play Dimension Shifter, I guess, which is good going like first or second generally. A lot of decks will struggle against a Dimension Shifter, and then you have like hand traps like Maxi Ash Blossom, which you're just hoping will stop your opponent's turn. Because if it doesn't, you just have to like top deck like Raigeki or Forbidden Droplet, and that's kind of like your game plan here, I guess. If you can access Zeus, I guess that would also work. It's kind of a big if though, because Martha. So that's just pain, basically. No good way to really put it, I guess. Just a struggle when you're playing XYZ. So XYZs also don't build advantage as hard as like Link summoning, Synchro summoning, and of course Synchro summons and Link summons and Fusion summons, in my opinion, are all more flexible than XYZ summons as well. Aside from the ranks, the like pseudo rank ups you can do, I guess, where you just directly XYZ with like more or less one monster. Fusion, Link, and Synchro are more generally accessible in any situation in comparison to XYZ. Like Guardian Chimera exists and you just more or less like fuse for 3 and you can just make a Guardian Chimera. Like most fusion decks can just fuse with whatever monsters they have, is kind of how it feels, so whatever. And Link summons, it's just basically you just have monsters you can Link summon. Super generic. Synchros, you kind of have to build your deck for it more, of course, but Synchros are generally very accessible with like 1 or 2 card combos as well. the best example of this is with Punk and Emergency Teleport, which is just like a one card like synchro kind of combo. Kind of, but it blends a little more stuff into it, I guess. But in general, XYZ strategies are, well, if we're just focusing on a extra deck kind of monster type, kind of like base strategy, like an XYZ strategy would be worse than like a synchro strategy in general when we're thinking about consistency and like inboard strength. Generally, they are just worse than the other types as well. And that's kind of all I've got for you guys today. It's just, I honestly I personally like XYZ monsters, and I generally want to play like an XYZ deck or decks, but there really isn't anything for me to play, and I don't really want to play Exo Sisters personally. Not like a super big fan of that. If Sharks were better, that would make me a happy boy, I guess. The closest thing that I know of that is a one card combo though is like you have, where is it? Lifeless Leafish dumping like a crystal shark, I think it was. I don't remember which shark it was. But it's something like that, and that's the only like one card combo I know that's an XYZ combo. Aside from like Zoo, I guess, where you just normal summon any Zoo and that's full combo. Yeah, so in terms of one card combos as well, I'm pretty sure XYZ just, they don't really have them. And their endboard strength isn't that impressive either. So that's all I've got for you guys today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.